Hey, welcome back. We're getting towards the end of our day here in the US. So we have some folks down under who are joining, and potentially some people from New Zealand, the native home of my guest today, Greg Newman. Greg, how you doing, sir?
All good. Nothing to complain about today.
Yeah, and where are you joining us from today?
Sunny and warm Phoenix, Arizona.
All right. Well, hey, we've been friends for a while. I miss your company. I miss sharing a beer. I miss getting some very witty jokes headed my way from you in person. Hopefully, it'll happen before too long. But I will get out of your way and let you do your thing, and I'll come back in 20 minutes or so. Sound good?
Super cool. Thanks, Al.
All right. Enjoy.
My presentation today is really the sort of sum up of 6 years spent working in the people analytics field, watching some really smart people succeed and sometimes fail, and some really smart businesses succeed and fail, and getting started in people analytics. And so, what I'm going to present over the next 20 minutes is what I think are the 11 questions that really need to be asked before you start spending money or investing any time or putting your neck on the line, and getting into people analytics in your organization. Uh, a little bit about me. I've been doing HR technology for 20 years, just over 20 years now. So I spent a long time building global SAP HR solutions, and became, I suppose, increasingly frustrated that me and teams of people like me were working furiously hard on a solution that nobody loved, most people hated, and nobody got really excited about. So um, I took the chance of joining a startup. I joined TrustSphere, which was an organizational, it still is a organizational network analytics company. And so we did some amazing stuff using network analytics and understanding relationships in organizations and applying that to HR. And the last 12 months, I've been at Deloitte here in the US, working on client experience for analytics, HR analytics, which is really how do you build a package, not just a software sell, but how do you really put a wrapper around HR analytics to make it a living and breathing part of the HR business. Um, and when I'm not doing HR analytics, I like to travel. My wife and I have lived in 6 different countries, 5 different continents, and we've visited 86 countries in the world, which is, it sounds like a lot sometimes, but it's only 40%. So we've still got a lot of traveling to do. And as you can tell by that photo in the bottom right-hand side, I spend a lot of time messing around in old cars. This is my current fleet. On the left is a 1956 Morris Minor that's followed me all the way from New Zealand. On the right is our most recent member of the family, which is a 1989 Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser. It's the ultimate vision of American excess, 5.5 meters long, and it seats 8, and it's pretty awesome. So that's me. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take you through these 11 questions and sort of tease out the thinking behind them, why I think this stuff is important, and give you some illustrations of how to lead these questions and what sort of thinking should go into them. And I have to say that I did show my slides to my wife, and she said it was literally the most boring looking set of 11 slides she'd ever seen in her life. And my wife works in insurance, so that was a pretty big insult. So you'll see on the right of every slide a photo. So as well as listing out 11 big questions to be asked in people analytics, I'm also taking you through my favorite 11 countries that I've ever visited in the world, leading to my number one favorite country. So in this time of COVID, where nobody's doing much traveling, thought we could spend the time doing a little bit of virtual traveling. And then if we run out of questions at the end around people analytics, we can also turn it into a travel conversation, which is always fun. So starting at 11, that first big question to ask is, how mature is our organization? And I think most people are interested in people analytics. Have read Laszlo Bock's book Work Rules, which was about how he started people analytics at Google. And it's a really great illustration that super smart guy doing amazing stuff, but happened to do people analytics in an organization that was only 11 years old at the time. Its only product was data, and everyone in it came from a technical, logical, data-driven kind of view of the world. So when he started saying we need to run experiments, we need to trust the data, he got the kind of reaction you would imagine from Google. You might not get that sort of reaction if you work in a 300-year-old insurance company, right? So for me, it's about understanding how mature is our organization? Like, what's the appetite? Are they ready for predictive analytics, or are they really for just ready for some centralized reporting that evolves into analytics? And I think before starting on this journey, that first big decision is, how mature are we as an organization? Number 10, a quick shout out to the right hand side. My number 10 favorite country in the world, Kenya. Done safari in several African countries now, but safari in Kenya with the animals, with Mount Kenya, with the amazing beaches. Kenya is definitely number 10 on my list. Back to people analytics. The second thing I think to do is to start looking backwards, right? So a recent client that we worked with at Deloitte, we found out like 2 months into the program that this was the 5th time they'd started HR analytics. And I think there's a lot of things to be learned, asking the business, asking HR, asking leadership, what have we tried? And most importantly, what have we failed at? Because learning what's been tried before and trying not to repeat those, I think, is incredibly important. It also gives you the chance to find out who are the supporters, and equally who are the blockers, who are the people that don't give a crap about this, that don't want to spend money on this, that don't fundamentally believe the organization should be digital or data oriented. So I think a really important thing before spending any money and before going forward is to really look backwards and work out what we already know. Number 9, on the right hand side, Borneo in Malaysia. I think the hidden gem of Asia, amazing scenery, super lovely people, and orangutans. So Borneo, number 9 on my list. And the question we want to ask here on the people analytics side is, what do we want to do with this, right? And what's the point of doing people analytics? And I think a really good thing to do here is to identify a really big question, a really important question in the business that can't be solved with existing reporting or dashboards or Excel spreadsheets, and getting that out there, a question that's got big support from stakeholders, that's visible in the organization. But answering a question like that is going to take time. It should take time to do a good analysis. It should take time to implement the change and to measure those impacts. So I think establishing that vision of what you want to achieve in the first 1 or 2 years and finding that keystone topic is really, really important. And trying to establish that last line, every other part of the business starts instantly with the ROI of what they're going to spend the company's money on. So this big question should have a demonstrable ROI attached to it. Number 8 is pretty much the opposite of that. So while we're waiting for this big, juicy halo question to be answered, flipping it down and looking at really small tactical projects that we can achieve, small questions we could answer, small experiments we can do. It might be as easy as, can we quickly consolidate a whole lot of different sets of offline processes? Can we get rid of a couple of standalone analytics dashboards or tools? So establishing some smaller projects where we can show how awesome we are, where we can show some positive benefit impact, but not things that we're all going to get fired on if they go wrong or if the science doesn't work, right? We want to keep our risk down, and we just want to start winning hearts and minds in the business. On the right-hand side, Argentina coming in at number 8. Patagonia is just absolutely stunning. It's like New Zealand, but 10 times bigger. The mountains are higher, the lakes are bigger, and it's got all that wine and great steak. So Argentina coming in at number 8. Number 7 is looking at what we are heading towards. So we've got a big question, we've got some short-term wins, but I think one of the key things to make this really sticky is the establishing of a roadmap. And one of the cool things about having a roadmap is it's a great way to bring people in. People from the business are going to be more engaged and more involved if in 6 or 12 or 18 months, a question they're asking has been prioritized, has been tested out, and has been put on the roadmap. And having seen this evolve, often the roadmaps, you might not get to those things. The roadmap will keep evolving as business priorities evolve. COVID took every HR analytics team in America totally by surprise this year. But every company I know has been working on HR analytics related to COVID. So your roadmap you may never head in the direction of your roadmap, but it's an amazing tool to help people get on board, to see the vision, and get people in when they feel that their questions and their interest areas are tagged to the roadmap in the future. Did I say where that is? That's Scotland. So, for a place that rains so much, it's totally amazing how captivating it is. Beautiful beaches, amazing hiking, whiskey around every corner. Scotland, for me, definitely a European highlight. Number 6 is looking at the humans, right? So who do we have? And often the answer might be no one, right? And the instant thinking is that there's no one in the business who can really help with this. And a lot of people then go out and start hiring people, data scientists and all that kind of thing, statisticians. And I really feel that it is a much more efficient and effective sort of piece of a much more effective way to get things done is to develop people who are internally already, who understand your business, who understand your culture, who understand the big problems in the organization. I would say that it's easier to teach those people basic statistics, teach them how to use R, teach them how to use Excel really well. It's much quicker return on investment and less risk to find those people, maybe in HR, maybe in other parts of the business, who have a statistical bent, who are interested in data, and find them. And as you can see, it's not all about data, right? It's about all of the other skills that come together. But I would try and form a gang in the organization of people who are hyper excited about this before I went out and started bringing in talent into the organization. On my top countries to visit, number 6 there, that is a floating gas station or petrol station floating on the Amazon River. At the point we took this photo, we were about 700 kilometers from the ocean, and the Amazon, you can see the other side of it there in the trees in the distance. The Amazon was still so wide and so big that there was super tankers traveling up and down the river. So to sleep on the Amazon on a boat, to see freshwater dolphins jumping around, just one of the many things that Brazil, will blow your mind every day. Number 5, this is really, I think, probably the most important one for me and the one I get most excited about. And it's no irony here that I put it beside a holiday snap we took visiting North Korea. If anyone ever is looking for the most bizarre and depressing holiday, I would totally suggest maybe 2, possibly even just 1 day in North Korea is probably enough. But yeah, we holidayed in North Korea, and it ties in really well with these conversations about not just what can we do, but should we be doing it? Who should we be telling? Who needs to know? In HR analytics and HR, we have such a privileged position that we get access to this amazing set of data. It's really personal. It's really private. It's in some cases it's our people and everything about them. And we should treat that always with so much respect and so much caution. And a lot of organizations just jump in and start carving this stuff up. And one of my favorite things that's been written in the last few years is David Green and Jonathan Farrar and the team at Insight 222 writing about having an ethics charter. And I think, security and compliance are in some ways a simpler and more sort of defined set of priorities to take care of and to understand. But I think the idea of having an ethics board, of having an ethics charter, being really transparent, is a great way to de-risk everything that you do in analytics, but also more importantly, to make sure that what you're doing is right and that it treats people rightly, it treats people fairly. So I think having a long conversation about ethics and what we should be doing and who should be policing us is a really important set of internal thinking to have done before we do any sort of looking at data. Start with the dude on the right here. Number 4 on my best ever holidays, Rwanda, tiny little country in the middle of Africa, but it gives you an opportunity when you visit Rwanda to visit the gorillas in their natural environment. That 1 hour is without a doubt the best ever hour I've spent in my life. That's the silverback lead of a family of 26 gorillas. We got to sit with them. The little gorilla kids climbed over us. The mama gorillas, picked at our hair and tried to find fleas to eat in my hair. That experience with those gorillas literally in the mist. Rwanda is a country we can all learn from, and a great sort of segue into change, right? So people analytics is much less about data and technology. I think are much more about business, about how do we change the business? How do we take an insight and something we've learned and make someone in a branch office at a desk in the middle of nowhere, on a telephone, working remotely or in a factory, how can we convince them to do something different based on what we've learned? And having a great engagement and having people from the business who are experienced in change is critical to creating that impact that enables people analytics to sustain and to thrive. Number 3, finally, we get to talk about data. And a lot of organizations start with data, right? Because that's where technologists are comfortable, that's where analytics people are comfortable. But I think really if we answer those previous questions first and we know what we're doing, then we can spend a lot less time just running around the business and asking for all that data, especially in this period where we're so aware of what we should be doing, and how many rules and regulations are applied to it. Making sure that we only get the minimum amount of data that we need, that we have a right to use it, that's a global right. It's not just in the jurisdiction we're in right now. The smaller that set of data is, the easier it is for us to make sure that our definitions are right, make sure that the data is clean, make sure that the ownership and maintenance of it is clear. It also gives us a chance to look outside that traditional HR data set. I'm super excited about, when can we bring, survey results in? When can we bring customer market feedback? When can we bring, network analytics data in? And if we're so busy wrangling massive sets of workday data that we don't have any questions for, then we'll never get to those other pieces of crucial data that might help us to answer and unlock those great business questions. The photo on the list, number 3 of my favorite countries ever visited, is New Zealand. It's a pocket rocket of a country. You can see there the mix between the mountains and the beaches. This is not far from my house. This is Kaikoura on the South Island of New Zealand. Absolutely awesome country with amazing beer and amazing wine and super fresh seafood. So this is where a lot of people start. They start with technology. They start by talking to a vendor, by buying some software. And I think that doing that without answering all of those other questions first can lead to a lot of wasted effort and a lot of wasted money, right? So a lot of organizations that I've seen are doing fairly good people analytics just using Microsoft Excel, right? It's not about buying the best, shiniest thing. It's a couple of great shortcuts is talking to other teams in the business. What are finance doing? What are marketing doing? What are sales doing? What have they already got licenses for where they've sunk the cost and you don't need to spend anything? Can we get 5 licenses for HR? And then that question about should we buy it or should we build it? Again, it's an easier conversation to have when we have specific best questions, business questions out there that we're ready to answer. And those, the next two big things about who owns it, right? One of the best things about borrowing finances tool is you don't need to pay the licensing cost. You don't need to run the application. Maybe HR do want to own it, but are they ready for another application that they're going to need to support? They're going to need to upgrade. Like all of those things need to be taken into account when we're looking at technology. And increasingly, companies are saying that they want a broad sort of single source of truth. So that would be a solution that can easily consume finance data, marketing data, customer data and HR data. How can we get to a point where that big data lake or whatever it is starts to make us being able to gather and use data from different sources without, a lot of data wrangling and a lot of trouble. So this country, when you're looking at this, is Iceland. So a tiny little country. One of the greatest benefits of Iceland is that it has 24-hour sunlight in summer. So it's an awesome place to get bang for your buck in terms of holiday. But I always kind of think that Iceland kind of feels like a country that God's just finished making. Like everything looks amazing. Everything looks just like a picture postcard. This glacier, for example, was used in a Bond film, and it's what's cool is if you turn around the camera lens, there's a beach with rolling, breaking waves just on the other side of it and a sandbar in between. So it's an absolutely magical country. So number one, my last big question is really what we've been focused on in the last 12 months of my time at Deloitte was really how do you run this? After that first big question's answered, like who's going to own people analytics? Is it HR? Is it IT? Is it a broader analytics function? And those big questions then lead to, who's going to manage it? Who's going to make sure our technology works? Who's going to fix it? Who's going to log tickets? But that sort of stuff's quite transactional, but it's also about the bigger stuff. How do we measure its success? How will we know if we're winning? How will we gather ROI data? How will we share in the glory when this all works? And it's the last of my 11 questions, and it leads me to my favorite country to visit, my favorite country to holiday. I have to say, this is a photo taken just 2 miles from my house. This is a desert tortoise in the deserts of Arizona. And America is my favorite country to holiday in because we can be in Alaska in 4 hours on snow-covered mountains. We can be in the deserts, dry deserts here in Arizona in 10 minutes in my case. And America has a little bit of everything. And it's never dull in America. There is always something to watch on the news. So America is my current number one holiday destination. So they were my 11 questions. Just some final thoughts. I like lists if you can't tell, but the big things I would take away from this is ethics. Make sure that you understand the ethics of the work you're doing. Choose your software last. It's usually the least complicated of the big decisions you need to make. Build internal capacity with your humans. Don't go outside the organization until you've tried everything you can to find those cool dudes in the organization that can help you out. Stakeholders, it's IT 101, right? Make sure that your stakeholders are visible. My last project, we had an office hours every week where we talked about people analytics for 2 hours. We made sure the CIO turned up to the first one. Seeing those stakeholders present, seeing them engaged and involved makes everyone understand this is a big priority for the organization. And my last one, a little bonus one there, never start with the data and try and find problems. Always start by talking to the humans in the business and find the problems from them. I've never really seen any data science team uncover a problem, take it to the business and get a budget to fix it. HR doesn't work like that. Business doesn't work like that. Start with the business, start with the humans and look in the data last. That's it. That's it from me. 20 minutes, 11 topics. I hope that was useful.
It definitely was useful, Greg. Thank you so much. there's so much we can jump into there, and I wish we had more time to do it. But I'm going to sneak in two questions real quick. You have been in the space for obviously a number of years, and you have this list that you've compiled, and I want to highlight the one thing about the technology first approach that many take. And there has been a hesitancy by people analytics leaders, by HR business partners and those, just to have the conversation first about, hey, what do you want? What are your problems? What are your opportunities? And just capture the thinking, and then go apply a project against it, and then go source the appropriate data, and then find the technology that's going to create the appropriate data. Is that something that you have found a great opportunity in, particularly in your role there at Deloitte, when you talk about the experience of those who are consuming the data? If they're involved and feel heard, that the project and the insight that's generated actually is going to meet their need, that the adoption is higher. Is that a fair synopsis of what a successful engagement would look like between a people analytics team and their internal customers?
Yeah, and I speak bluntly here, but the worst thing you can do is let IT run this, right? Like, no one wants another technology, no one wants another log on, no one wants another URL to forget, right? Like, that's not how you make business change. You bring everyone in, you form a gang of people who are super passionate about this topic. If it's equity, if it's revenue, whatever it is that you focus on, building that gang and getting that tribe all on the same pathway, building a roadmap, that leads to the excitement and the buzz that then justifies spending money and buying a product. And there's some great products out there, but without a business problem, they're not going to do anything for anyone.
Yeah, well, 100% agreed. And the last question is, I can't believe New Zealand wasn't number one. How could that be? Are you okay? Did someone get a hold of you? Have you been brainwashed?
In New Zealand, it's not just COVID. Like, I'm literally banned from the country for saying this, but there is one of the big problems in New Zealand is that it's so lovely. There is no poisonous animals or killer animals in New Zealand, right? You're never going to get bitten by a rattlesnake, which can literally happen in my garage here in America, right? Like, you're never going to get eaten by a Kodiak bear, right? America gives every possibility to go outside and get eaten by a bear that New Zealand never will.
And your wife has just kudos to your wife. That's all I have to say. Just hang on to her, and she's the one keeping you safe, my friend.
Totally it.
Hey, Greg, great seeing you. Thanks for sharing. Look forward to following up with you soon, and be well. Hopefully we'll be together before too long.
Thanks for your time. Thanks to everyone for listening in. I hope it was useful. I love talking about this stuff. So anyone wants to ever talk to me, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can always find me. I'm always super excited to talk about this stuff. Thanks, Al. I look forward to having a beer with you in the post-COVID world.
Yeah. Likewise, my friend. All right. That's it. Bye.
Cheerio.